This morning we are talking all about the Robinson Day celebration and all that includes. Now we know that today is the Robinson's Day island-wide cleanup campaign as indicated in our news in 90 seconds. And who better to talk about honoring the memory of the Honorable ANR Robinson than the man himself, an honorable himself, I should say, Mr. Cecil Caruth, a former assemblyman. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much, Ms. Felix.
Well, I am glad that I have you in studio with me this morning so that we can discuss a bit on the life of ANR Robinson. And now what stands out most about him for persons like us is that he was a Tobagonian like all of us, making great strides and standing out to be, one of those persons who became globally recognized for his leadership, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but throughout the region. And we know that he was there during that 1990 coup. Tell us a bit about how the impact of Mr. Robinson would have shaped the political landscape in Tobago, particularly.
Okay, Mr. Robinson tirelessly pursued an open road to give Tobagonians a chance for the recognition that they deserve. Not only under the human rights category, but through self-development and recognition of self, that you are a people with peculiar tastes and therefore peculiar types of appreciation for them, and giving Tobago a chance for its people to emerge. And Robinson did all that he can, as humanly possible, to give Tobago that chance.
And he played a pivotal role in, Tobago moving towards having greater autonomy. And to this day, it's a conversation that is still on the table. Do you think if he was alive, he would be disappointed to know that in 2024, the conversation about Tobago's autonomy is still happening?
I think he would be a very sad person to see what is still happening in the Tobago space. Even getting Tobago to have the opportunity to steer its own course, not out of Trinidad and Tobago, but within the boundaries of Trinidad and Tobago. There are lots of things that Tobago can teach Trinidad to have. But the more we lean on the Trinidad attitude, I don't think it will be better for us and our young people coming up. Our young people have to be a little more assertive. Not that they are not, but they have to be a little more assertive. They have to learn to analyze the problems for themselves and come to some sort of conclusion. Tobagonians, especially the young ones, should get together and discuss the Tobago problems.
Right. And how important do you think it is for a deeper level of education to the Tobago youth on understanding the critical role that persons like Mr. Robinson would have played in Tobago's history, as opposed to just, touching on it to say, okay, he was once the prime minister, he was once the president, he was once the chair of the assembly, but having a more detailed look for young persons within the curriculum to help them understand a part of what truly makes them Tobagonian as well.
Mr. Robinson has left a trail for young Tobagonians, old Tobagonians to follow. He has written a book the independence thrust, call the mechanics of independence, which states the way that Trinidad and Tobago should go in order to have an identity and for Tobagonians in particular to believe that they can prosper in the system, so that even the banks and the people who are in different sphere of activity should join in the purpose. There is nothing bad about it. In fact, it is instrumental of developing your intellectual capacity to see where the world is and compare yourself with where the world is.
Excellent. And now he played a key role in the assembly being what it is today. And now we have persons that are in a place of power who have the ability to even further expand the work that he had put in. From your personal perspective, are you in agreement, or are you unhappy with the fact that the Tobago Autonomy Bill was rejected last week in the Parliament?
I'm very unhappy about it. I recall not necessarily putting myself in the picture. That day, when the motion for internal self-government was passed in Parliament, that is way back in 1977, I recall I was driving home by myself and contemplating, this thing has passed in 1997. Will I live to see the materialization of this process? And if I should live, what it would be like, what stage it would be at this time. And at this time, when you're fighting to pass a bill to give Tobago a chance to do what it can to put itself on the map, you're still fighting against that? Does that make sense? No.
So what about the argument that says after so many years of fighting, Tobago deserves to get exactly what it requests as opposed to only a part of that?
Well, the present governance structure in Tobago does not give them a chance, the people in authority, to expand in the way we should on what Robinson has laid down for us in Tobago. Number one, you go into Trinidad to listen to this bill about Tobago, and then you coming up empty-handed. Why? Because two sides of governance, they can't meet and they cannot discuss in a sensible way what Tobago should get. It is too much politics in the business and not too much the question of what can happen to make it happen. They're not interested in that. I recall when Robinson was Prime Minister, and he tried to do two important things to Tobago: to get communication between Trinidad and Tobago going, and between Tobago and the outer world and even the other Caribbean islands going. You're still fighting that?
Exactly.
What you're fighting?
And he did a lot when it came to trying to decentralize power and having Tobago have authority over a number of areas. So even some of those items that we see under the remit of the THA are, because of the work that was done. He played a part on those bills to ensure that Tobago has authority over these areas. But as you indicated, today we are still advocating for more responsibility over other key areas like all maritime borders and other things like that that has come up in this bill. But you are saying that for you, it was quite sad that that bill, even in its current state, was not passed last week.
I tell you something. I myself am trying to come to terms with what is happening. There's too much politics in the game.
Okay.
And then people see you fighting for a place with Tobago, and they're looking at you as some other type of person. And politician, you're a politician. But what is politics? Politics is about governance and developing systems that will make people advance, not in a vacuum, but deliberately go towards a goal. If you do not have a goal in life, you're going to perish. It said, united we stand and what? Divided we fall. And we're dividing up the cake too much.
So you think that the issue or the topic of autonomy, although politics and governance is quite important, should be separate and apart from that. It should be an entity on its own, because the politics should not matter when it comes to how Tobago advances and how the economy develops for future generations to come.
Well, you're hitting the nail on the head. And the more you hit the nail on the head, the more you drive it in. And my concern is about the young people. What are they interested in? My concern is, how can you influence young people? You don't have to tell them, go on one side and stand back. You're telling them, listen, you as a person have a role to play, and nobody should stop that. In fact, it should be encouraged. And you don't have to always wait on somebody else higher up to give you something.
Right. And as you indicated before, one of the key writings of Robinson was that book, The Mechanics of Independence, where he reflected on Trinidad and Tobago's journey to independence and the challenges of nation building. Do you think that it is important for current politicians and upcoming politicians to pay particular attention to the writings of Robinson in understanding the trajectory of the growth and development of Trinidad and Tobago with the context of the history in mind?
Well, I think we should set you up as a person, as a resource person, to assist our elders to come to terms with getting Tobago on the map, where we feel that we can do things, and we set about together to chart a course for Tobago's development, not for somebody outside to come and tell you what to do. They should be invited when it is necessary to assist, because they would have had the information, they would have had the experience of building something. You need builders. You need imagination to go into Tobago space. I was coming in a car this morning, and the driver kept saying how beautiful Tobago is. And when we came along that line, just across by where it's called this road here.
Lambo on the old road. The Lambo
Yeah, no,
old
not
road?
so much there. Just the corner up there.
Okay.
Right up there. Before we meet
Milford
before we meet the Esplanade.
Okay.
And you're talking, it's just so beautiful.
Right.
What can you do to that? You don't destroy it. You preserve it by adding in the little things that would make it look good. And that you talk about, you had to have an aim. Are you going to develop tourism? And tourism for whom? And for what? And who must be the participators? And who will be the facilitators of these things?
Excellent. And so, as we wrap up our discussion, is there anything in particular you want to tell to this generation as we reflect on the life, the success, the accomplishment, and the impact that Mr. Robinson has had in his lifetime?
I don't know. I think it is necessary to go into the schools and speak to the children, motivate them, stir up their energies, and let them know that they can do it. Robinson saw that he could have done it since he was in school. One would say he was a bright fellow, very bright. Robinson did very well at his exams, and he did well in politics, on the world stage, on the Tobago stage, and he fought with all his might to get Tobago on the world map. Tobago, you remember when he got into office, 2 projects he made sure that were embarked on in Tobago: the port development and the airport development. And that was since years ago. And we're still fumbling on that. And we're still crossing over and trying to block things. No, man. Tobago had to unite as one.
Excellent, excellent. We want to thank you so much, former Assemblyman Mr. Cecil Caruth, for your time this morning. And guys, you're going to continue with much more discussions right after this break. So see you soon. Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. I am your host, Shenell Felix, and this morning I have had the privilege of chatting with Mr. Cecil Caruth, who is a former assemblyman, and pretty soon I would have Miss Mirriam Caesar Moore, who is also a former assemblyman, joining us in the discussion virtually. But as we were even chatting a bit outside of the break, and we were talking about the importance of education. And when we even look at the life of Mr. Robinson, we know that he was very education focused. He was a Rhodes Scholar, and he studied at St. John's College, Oxford, earning a degree in philosophy, politics, economics, and followed by a degree in law from Graves Inn in London. And even as his impact on Tobago, he was a firm believer in education as a tool for empowerment. Robinson supported initiatives to improve access to quality education in Tobago, and he emphasized that education helps to create opportunities for Tobagonians to advance academically, and that their advancement would therefore lead to a contribution to the island's overall development. And outside of the break, we were chatting a bit on why it's so important to have that focus on education.
And it certainly is. While not promoting myself, while I was in the assembly, when we had executive powers in the assembly, I kept pushing to establish what I call articulation between universities abroad and Tobago's hope for university. And when I say articulation, let me give you an example. For example, there was a college, let's say Medgar Evers College in the United States, that they were ready to assist us to put universities in Tobago, not necessarily the big buildings, but to get the information and the articles to have our people study and to have those abroad to come in to Tobago to expose us to their knowledge and the processes. And this would have afforded students too from abroad to come and study in Tobago. Now, when that is done, you find that, for example, while the Americans, if they live outside of the state, had to pay double the cost to study in another state, you could have had them coming to Tobago to study in Tobago, and even when the cost might have been doubled in the States, you find that they could have met the cost of studying in Tobago. For example, Abraham Moore is passed on now. That is Mirriam Moore, brother-in-law. He was a vice president at Morgan State, and he was one who was ready to have Tobago participate alongside Morgan State in certain areas.
Right. And so when it comes to the importance of education in the overall discussion, we know that during Robinson's time, he also advocated for a Tobago identity, a unique Tobago identity.
That's it.
And this should be embedded in the Tobago education system. And we hear from the Secretary of Education talking about that Tobago-centric curriculum that is being built out to ensure that the unique Tobagonian identity is embedded in the next generation. And so when it comes to the cultural and historical identity, preserving that is extremely important, and also, creating a hub here in Tobago that when persons come from wherever they come from to study here, they are privy to what the true Tobago identity and history is. And we already see that curation of the history and collection of that happening even at the Assembly Legislature, where they have done a really great job at preserving a lot of Tobago's history. Now, we have the privilege of, Miss Mirriam Cesar Moore, who is a former assemblyman now joining into the conversation. And I'm glad that she jumped in right when you mentioned her brother-in-law as the vice president at Morgan State University. Good morning, Mrs. Moore, and welcome.
Yeah, good morning, and good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Mr. Caruth. I heard your voice. I am now joining. I'm sorry I missed quite a bit of what was said before, but I'm here now.
Excellent, excellent. And so we were just chatting about the importance of education and some of the work that Mr. Robinson would have done to ensure that the Tobagonian is given the type of education that is needed to contribute and give back when it comes to Tobago's overall development.
Yes, so I must applaud your station for this program on the birthday of ANR Robinson, and also to let you know that that we are one in this from day one. We have been very, very much concerned about education in Tobago, and I'm glad Mr. Caruth, an educator par excellence, is on the set this morning. Without education, my goodness, without education, the Tobagonian cannot rise. And that's why when people like Mr. Caruth try to introduce these distant learning in Tobago, it was at the time when that came about, we were like thundering. But now it is a part of Tobago. Education is a part of Tobago. Distant education is a part of Tobago. So that's my contribution on that part.
Right. And I have to ask, we are still having that autonomy conversation, even though this was a conversation that, Mr. Robinson himself was having in his time. And, with all the work that he has done to push for greater autonomy for Tobago. We're in 2024 and the conversation is still being had. How do you feel about the fact that that bill was rejected last Monday with all the work that has been done over the years?
When I saw that, it just sent shivers down my spine. For 48 years, the people of Tobago have been trying and working towards full internal self-government. And every step of the way we are turned down, we are abandoned. And I'm hoping that the people of Tobago would rise up during this time and give Tobago what is due. And it is left to the people of Tobago. Yes, we know we have the parliament who controls things, but they won't see it. They won't see the pain that we are feeling for 48 years now and beyond that. Way back in the days of APT James and these people. And it was a slap in the face.
And Mrs. Moore, I want to hear from you. How important do you think it is in the larger autonomy conversation to have the right person strategically placed in the parliament to represent Tobago's autonomy agenda?
That's what we need now, and that's why I'm saying it's like we are at the verge now when God is telling the people of Tobago, rise up and do something about this, so that in the 50 years we can celebrate. We have 2 more years to make 50 years to celebrate it's Tobago autonomy. How can you imagine everything comes from Trinidad? Everything comes from Trinidad. We are an island. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have communication, but let us feel as though we have achieved something. So that is why it's very important that the people of Tobago look at that issue and make it a priority in the Tobago space.
And how are you speaking to the general public when it comes to not taking for granted what that next general election truly means for Tobago and Tobago's autonomy? Because we know that we often see a lower voter turnout during the general election compared to the THA elections. And now, more than ever, we are seeing the Tobago autonomy issue and having the right person strategically placed in the central government to push for Tobago's autonomy agenda coming to the forefront. So how important is it for Tobagonians to really and truly, I'll allow Mr. Cecil Caruth to answer here, to really understand the importance of that next general election?
I think, and I've been, let me just, I'll let you comment. I think at this point, the young people, and I thought the young people of Tobago would rise up more. We have an opportunity now for the young people to be educated about the importance of full internal self-government for Tobago. And if it's going from village to village and get the young people involved in, a lot of them don't understand the passion that people like Sister Pam, Brother Caruth, and Hochar Charles, who are deceased, and these people understood. It's like, it's something, to me, it's such necessary and important factor in the life of the young Tobagonian going forward. So they can say, we have done it. Yeah, Robinson and all of us, we started and we have done our part. They need to take up that mantle now under the Chief Secretary Fali, Brother Fali. He needs to understand how important this is and going out to the young people with this message from now, going from village to village, let them understand. So it has to be very political. So let me stop, let someone else come in. That's my point.
All right, Mr. Caruth.
I just wrote it here. To achieve our goal and to speed us towards that achievement, I believe that the present assembly group of people are visionaries. So what can happen? You develop what you call an itinerant set of educators. There are lots of people out there who are retired. And when they tell you that they're retired, they are 60 years old, they don't look like 60. They can still give something to the community. So you're setting up sections in Tobago where these itinerant educators will have their own syllabus, infusing in the minds of Tobagonians the necessity for building a strong vision, to action that vision by going out there and doing what they can. For example, you had in the days of Pearl Solomon, she went out there and she had people, and that is even was before my time, she had people doing things, they're making the little jam, and they put it in the stores like penny savers and stuff like that. What we can do is move at a higher level and do what you can do with the cocoa estates that are now in High Bush.
Right. And I did see that there were persons like Mr. Reginald Dumas and Reginald Phillips and a number of them that, you know, took the time out to create a council of elders. And I think that this type of structure is really important to look at as a bipartisan approach to advising the Tobago House of Assembly on a number of policies and, you know, just education on the history and how development should be structured moving forward. It's not to say that they have to listen to it or they have to implement, but maybe just, you know, utilizing that of a source of data and a source of research when decisions are being made. Because, you know, on the other side of that, you know, you have the persons who would say, well, those persons' time already passed already, or they already had their time. But there's so much knowledge, there's a wealth of knowledge that or present representatives can tap into and combine it with their futuristic vision for innovation and, you know, developmental impact to have that synergistic model that creates a successful Tobago that is indeed the greatest little island on the planet. And so I want to allow Mrs. Caesar Moore to jump in here if she wants to jump in when it comes to really tapping into the resources that come from the knowledge of some of our elders that can contribute back to Tobago's development.
Yeah. No, I agree with you totally, and I agree with Mr. Caruth totally on that issue of the elders forming and being able to assist. But I want to say it is very crucial now. The general election is right around the corner. We need to have people that are knowledgeable to go into parliament and speak on the full internal self-government for Tobago. And I'll tell you why. Yes, we are elders and we are now home, but if you go from village to village with this and with this passion that the Tobago young people need to understand, that they cannot go along with what the other side is saying about Tobago. They need to understand it get it in their brain, be educated as to what internal self-government is and what it will do for Tobago internal. And going from village to village right now, yes, we would join at some point and we can be there as backup. We are not taking over, but we can be there giving insight. So you start from Charlottesville and you come down. Let the young people come out. Let them know. And they're the ones that are going to carry this forward, carry the message forward for the general election. And I think we cannot allow another group to take this over. We are the ones that understand it and need to be able to tell it and carry the message. So I'm saying, Tobago, rise up. Young people, rise up. Tobago House of Assembly, you need to get the right people there to carry that message. So come general election, there will be no question as to why we are fighting, why we are still on the warpath for Tobago.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving us your time this morning, Ms. Mirriam Cesar Moore. And we want to ask God to continue to bless you and Mr. Caruth with long life, health, and strength, so that you can continue to pass on the information, continue to teach my generation, and, you know, be able to curate a lot of that data that you have, all of that history that you have, that you can pass it on to us so that we can use it to make future decisions. And as the fight for Tobago's autonomy continues, one of the key aspects of the conversation this morning has to do with what does Tobago do moving forward to continue the work of persons like ANR Robinson. And one of those things has to do with coming out and voting in that next general election. Now, it is your choice whoever you vote for. It's your choice whoever you put there. But it is important that you vote. You have a right to vote, right? You have to vote. Definitely. It is your constitutional right. So when you hear that bell ring, which we predict to be very soon, we want you, the Tobago public, to understand that this election hinges on continuing the work that persons like Mr. ANR Robinson started to ensure that Tobago truly receives the autonomy that it desires. So guys, we want to thank you so much for joining the conversation this morning. We want you guys to stay tuned right here on Tobago Updates as we continue to do all that we can do to bring you the information, and the fight for Tobago's autonomy continues. So although that bill did not pass last week, we hope that the conversations will continue. We hope that very soon we would see it popping up again on the parliamentary schedule for debate again once they do what needs to be done, right? Guys, we want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you for your likes, your shares, and comments, and all that you have been doing to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster here on the island of Tobago. Again, have a great day and thank you. Oh yeah, and make sure that you join the cleanup. Today is the Robinson Island-wide cleanup. So if you have not gotten the opportunity to put your stuff outside, this is your opportunity. Check your surroundings. All those old stuff that you have, your white waste is being collected this morning, the old bed, the old stove. I know that you guys took advantage of that Black Friday sale that happened. So if you know that you are waiting to get some new stuff delivered, put the old ones out. Do not wait. Today is the day. We don't want a situation where they pass to clean up everything today and it's only tonight you're about to go put out stuff. Right? So ensure that you do your part to be a part of this island-wide cleanup today. Guys, have a great day and goodbye.